Kenneth Davis, Big Ten Country. Get ready for the best YouTube segment you're going to see anywhere this week as me and Kenneth, we reunite after a month apart. It's been tough. Yeah, exactly. Kenneth, here are my first couple thoughts watching that game last night. At the end of the game, James Franklin, who's a famously tight coach when it comes to the game plan, decided we've got several timeouts here. We've got a few seconds. We can get into field goal range. And he, for once, decided, damn the torpedoes, let's go. And they threw a pick, and it's like somebody who's afraid of snakes. And then you say, you know what, I'm just going to let you hold the non-venomous snake. And then that snake bites you. And you're like, well, I'm not going to hold snakes anymore. That happened at the end of that game last night. And the other thing I think is, what LSU needs to do is let Brian Kelly move on and then hire a cool black guy, and then everything will be better. I
don't know. It works in the playoffs. And again, of course, shout out to my brothers. Mm-hmm. But, one thing, again, you guys know I'm an Alabama fan.
Yeah.
And you know how I feel about Ryan Day. But the same thing applies to Marcus Freeman and James Franklin. There's a lot of people now, and one of the things that when I first started coming on this show with you guys, we talked about was this new reality of the playoffs, and that a lot of people are going to be able to prop up themselves by saying I made it into the playoffs and I made it into a national championship game, who wouldn't have had an opportunity in a 4-team playoffs. Last night, that particular series at the end of the game where Penn State had the ball, they stopped Indy, the game is tied, and you got a first down on a run play. There was at that point, and again, I'm not going to say totally take the ball out of Drew Aller's hands, because anybody that watched Penn State last season before they were able to bring in more talent on the offensive side, that was part of the problem. They didn't have enough verticality on the edges. But and I definitely blame James Franklin takes a hit with that. That pass that Drew Aller threw was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Over the middle, it was just, when you saw him throw it, it was like, oh shit, I apologize, but that's just how I felt when he threw the pass. And for me, and you guys know how I have rooted for Penn State, but I have abandoned them. I was with James Naveau, my guy. We were talking last weekend when we were hanging out, and I said, you know what? I'll take Penn State over ND. I'll take them over ND, even if with ND having a slight edge, because I think offensively they'll be able to get more done than what Riley Leonard can do, just being super Paul Hornung-esque early Green Bay quarterback, H-back. And again, shout out to Notre Dame for being able to get something done in the pass play with a couple big pass plays. But that was ridiculous. You could have won in overtime, but still the run game was getting you first down. At least it's the second down of that series should have perhaps have been a pass play, but it should have been a safe pass play to the edges. Throwing over the middle at that predicament when you can go into overtime was ridiculous. They squandered an opportunity to make it to the national championship game for the first time since Joe Paterno was there. That really aggravated me last night. And honestly, I'm happy for Marcus Freeman. I used to love Indy. Lou Holtz was one of my favorite coaches when I was a little kid or whatever. But because I had been on the bandwagon for Penn State the last couple of years, and let alone Drew Aller, man, I hate it. Of course, he messed up. Let me say that. I know these kids are getting some dollars now, but they're inexperienced in high pressure games to a certain degree, some of them, or maybe I just give them a little bit of benefit of the doubt. It was sad to see how he was tore up about it, but he messed up and he gave away a chance that they may not get another opportunity anytime soon. I think they'll be in the playoffs with this kind of set up for them to make it to the national championship game. They're going to be teams perhaps in the future that are a lot more dynamic than what Notre Dame is, and they may have just scooped the pooch on this one. So it was definitely frustrating through my text thread with my friend last evening.
Well, look, Drew Aller is going to be back next year, and that's good news for Penn State, and I think he's going to continue to get better. He's been better year over year. Notre Dame's defense just threw a lot of looks at him last night, and I think the biggest thing was they had okay wide receivers at Penn State this year that got them by, but they need to, if they really want to take that next step and beat a defense like Notre Dame, they've got to have guys that are kind of like, whoa, Like, how did that happen? They don't have any of those guys, and that seems to be really the only position on the field that James Franklin hasn't completely nailed down in recruiting. And I'm sorry, and might be a position coach issue as well. Like, that might be something that he's got to do something that makes him uncomfortable and shake that up.
Get ready for epic savings at Best Buy. Right now, you can save up to $700 on select Alienware and Dell gaming products. Perfect for leveling up your gaming experience. Plus, grab the latest Android Google Pixel at an unbeatable price. Don't miss these incredible deals. Shop now at bestbuy.com and upgrade your tech today.
Also, I think when you look at it, let's just hypothetically say you have a 6'2", 18-year-old who's a phenomenal receiver. It's the first, well, not even the first, it's the fifth place you're talking about sending him, your son with his future, to Penn State to play wide receiver. Like, it's not necessarily, it's one of those linebacker U institutions. It's not a place, or even running back, the history of great running backs that they've had over the last 40-something odd years since Franco Harris. I'm sure some people, you can go back prior to Franco Harris, just going about right before I was born. I think that plays a part, but still with NIL money in the portal, you can get guys there. But hypothetically, even with what they had, you have two nice running backs and probably the number one tight end. And now I'm not saying that of course, they're going to key in on Ty Warren, but you use him as a decoy. Like, there are things that you can pull off in that situation. For Penn State, the wide receivers weren't bad, but I'm with you. They weren't, super, but they were better than what they had the season before. But even it's still the play, regardless of anything. It doesn't matter if Marvin Harrison Jr. was out there. That ball was getting intercepted.
Yeah.
Like that. That's where it was frustrating, where it was just like, and again, it's one of those growths in a quarterback where sometimes you just have to eat it. And that frantic feeling of, I have to do something, get it out, just throw it. A sack right there. A sack is better because it still allows you to take time off the clock, and perhaps even if you have to punt the ball, give it back to them with just a little bit of time, negating perhaps an opportunity for them to take a field goal because they have to drive majority of the field. Like, that's where it was just frustrating when it came to what happened last. Like, you hate to see a game like that end like that. Even if, regardless of against viewer ND, I'm sure you're happy because you thought you may not have a chance to take the game in regulation. But still, that was just frustrating. I'll say this, and I'm always going to have a part of me that roots for Drew Aller. There probably is a reason why sometimes they put the handcuffs on him when it comes to opening up, the playbook, because they fear situations like this taking place even in his second year as a full-time starter.
Yeah. I think it's good that he's coming back. I think another year in Andy Kotelnicki's system, I think it's good. I think it's going to be good for them. Now, again, you're going to lose Singleton and Katron Allen. I mean, that's, you're going to in a loaded NFL draft running back class this year. So as a Cowboys fan, I want them to draft Ashton Genty, but
I hope you do. He's
from Frisco. Like, he's from right practice. Like, he went to high school literally like this far from the Star. Like, it's right there. Like, if you on the Google Maps, you're just like, oh, you can see the two things in the same screen. You don't even have to scroll the damn map. You just look at it and you're like, there it is. But if you're a team in the NFL and you get a Katron Allen or Nicholas Singleton, I mean, those are they have NFL bodies, NFL speed, NFL strength, big, one cut running styles. They're going to be fine too. So if the Cowboys wind up with a Penn State guy, happy with that too. You can't.
They need one.
Yeah, exactly. They need that badly. Yeah. Dak needs it. He's going to have to go to Jerry and be like, please, just
yes.
Time to go back. Ignore this stupid analytics nonsense. Having an A+ running back. Like I think Penn State, if you're looking at, I think all levels of football need to look at what they can learn from each other. I think for a long time it was always like, well, the NFL is going to do the NFL's thing, and then everybody below them can do that. And then you started having high school coaches do some really innovative things, and then college coaches going, well, if this is the offense they're running, we need to put schemes like this in here because I don't want to I don't want to start like, okay, this is the football. You need 10 yards because I think it felt like that to them when you're teaching a kid a whole new offense. overall. Now the NFL is like that, where they're like, okay, here's some things. One of the things I think the NFL can look at Penn State and go is like, oh, you had 2 stud running backs and that was able to take pressure off of a good quarterback. But, you know, not everybody, like, I think quarterbacks and starting pitchers in baseball are the same. Like, some days you don't have your stuff. You don't, and that's why you need a banger back there to carry you. And I think people have forgotten about the running back. But to Penn State and to Notre Dame's credit, they're like, no. Like, we're going to get studs and run the ball at you.
Fundamental football always still works.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you have to be able to score, and you have to have the ability to perhaps have big plays. But if you can control the time of possession and you have a good defense and you can be physical with your running game on any level of football, it works. You know, like I know this, it applies, but it doesn't apply. Even if you go back to the greatest show on turf, and I'm talking about the St. Louis Rams,
mm-hmm.
part of the reason I felt like they didn't win that second Super Bowl was because they forgot Marshall Faulk also was a running back outside of being a great pass catcher. Time
mm-hmm.
of possession. They were scoring so fast at times that you were giving the opposing team more opportunities than they needed. You need to run the football, to your point. And then going just real quick with Dallas, listen, you saw what it did when Zeke was there. You have, I know there are other parts where they need some help at Dallas, but you know, and you pointed out help in Dak, what a prime time running back could do with one thing. And listen, I think sometimes grit, and this is from me looking on the outside looking in, I think grit plays a factor in why the Cowboys aren't been. I think a large part of it is because you don't have to listen to the coach, because you can go above the coach, and that's always a problem when it's like, like Charlie Brown's parents, and it's like, I'm just go talk to Jerry. But one thing you have to say over the last decade, at least, primarily playing general manager, he can spot talent. It's just the discipline and the structure. But so offensively, with the line, it's usually you guys are going to have a good line. I know the line has been aging out with some of the guys that were great 5 or 6 years ago. But you need, like, I would love to see Gentry, as you mentioned, you know, with the Penn State guys. But in the first or second round, I want to see Dallas take a phenomenal running back and just run them. Like, it just makes sense. And like you said, in the NFL, look at what the 49ers do. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you look at what the Dolphins do, if you could sit there, and the Dolphins may not bring physicality like the 49ers does, but the Dolphins can put anybody back there and he'll get 120 yards. It's just, you have to run the football, getting to your point about, you know, saying still doing what worked back in the days, but also applying what on the lower tiers they're doing, because you don't want to retrain somebody from the bottom all the way back up. You don't have enough time as a coach.
Absolutely. And if you look at the 2 teams that are playing tonight, Ohio State and Texas, they're both at their best when their running backs are hitting. Yep. And they've got, and look, the story of Ohio State is not Travion Henson and Quinshon Judkins, also 2 NFL running backs. It's their receivers and Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Ibuka and Carnell Tate. Like, he gets lost in the shuffle. He's really good too. But again, he's out there with a guy who's been there for a while and the best freshman wide receiver I've ever seen in my life. Maybe anybody will. I mean, it just, like, he is – like, every time they say, like, oh, he was at his senior prom in May. I'm like, no, he was not. Was he dropping his little – like, you think, like, oh, he's dropping his little brother off, right? Like, that's why he was at a prom. Like, he's about to go make, $20 million in the NFL. This game, to me, Ohio State is red hot. Texas has not been playing their best ball the last month. But their defense is so lethal, I don't think it matters as much. And neither of these teams are elitely great like Georgia was a couple years ago or 2019 LSU. I think Ohio State's getting this big number because they're hot. But, man, Texas, if they can run the ball a bit and if they can stuff you, and that secondary is really good, this game's going to be better, I think, than most people think.
Oh, for sure. Like, and I pray it is, because – the last thing I want is to sit there and give Ryan Day his flowers. All right. Like, I need Austin to do me a solid up here in the Midwest. I think this is going to be, and I could be wrong, this is just my opinion, this is going to be a lot on Will Howard, because
he's 0-3 against Texas.
That's and because if you ask me if I want to go with Ewers or Howard, I'm taking Ewers every day. You know, I think Ewers has been the best quarterback that was left out of all these 4 teams, I feel like if I had to play my life on one of these guys, and I wouldn't want to put my life on any of them, he would be the person that I would be like, all right, I know he can kind of get it done. He may just have a hiccup here or there. I think if you put it on Will Howard to win this game, and as you say, if Texas defense can get up and stuff the ball and you make him have to win the game, it gives Texas a great chance to win it. I wouldn't be surprised if Texas won, but I have to say that I would take Ohio State in this situation. That Michigan loss did something. And this is the problem with the playoffs as a hater. Right now I'm coming in as a professional hater. But the problem with the playoffs, because think about it, if there wasn't a playoffs, a lot of teams wouldn't have the opportunity to come back and do well. I should say a 12-team playoff is what I should say. It wouldn't allow some of these teams another opportunity to be like, yeah, you get a bowl game, but you're not in the playoffs. But yeah, shout out to Ohio State, because I'll be honest, I didn't think that they could get it back together and become probably the best team, as you meant, the hottest team right now in the CFP. And I mean, I felt like perhaps the committee should have broken down those brackets differently, and they shouldn't have faced Oregon as early as they faced Oregon. I think they should have ended up facing Oregon perhaps now. But still, I definitely give Texas a chance. I think out of these, the 3 teams that are left, including Texas outside of Ohio State, Texas has the best opportunity to beat Ohio State. I wouldn't have taken Penn State, and I wouldn't take Indy to beat Ohio State at this point. I think Texas is the only team that was left that can perhaps prevent them from winning the national championship, getting Ryan Day his first national championship as the head coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Yeah. Notre Dame, if they win this thing, feels to me like they are more doing it on the team of destiny vibe, right?
Yes,
like they're just
definitely.
like they just, like nothing about like the opponent to them right now is faceless. It's just guys in different color helmets. It doesn't register with them, and that's how you have a team that doesn't have like prolific. I mean, their defense is pretty prolific. Let's not get it twisted. But like their offense is very 1986. I mean, it's not anything that we see all that often anymore. So if you've got a team like Notre Dame that's kind of team of destiny and all that doesn't see that in front of them, that's scary to a team like Ohio State and Texas, because they literally will, like, it won't matter. Like it'll just be this formation. But when it comes to Ohio State and Texas, part of the other reason I think that Texas is going to win, and this is the reason I thought Notre Dame was going to win last night, is they've got a coach who can, like, Marcus Freeman finally learned how to take breaths and enjoy the moment. And he this year, other than any of the other years he was there, he enjoys the tense moments. And like, that's where he's like, this is where I'm going to cook. Steve Sarkisian, that's his whole thing. Like, all right, this didn't work. Okay, turn the page. Here, I've got another thing that'll work. That's what Ryan Day doesn't do well. Like in both of these games that they've won, look, if Ohio State jumps out and he doesn't have to be a tactician late, then they look great. But if they do, and Texas can certainly make them, then I give that to Steve Sarkisian, because he's way better later in games than Ryan Day is. And you can just look to any big loss that Ryan Day's had, whether it be to Michigan or Georgia or anywhere else, where he wins because he builds ridiculously talented teams that can run out on you, and then he can sit back and go, all right, well, now we can just kind of live on easy street. But if you can match them snap for snap, then he's got a problem.
If you can play it close to the fourth with Ryan Day, you have the advantage, because he gets conservative and he gets too tight to go along with what you're saying about Marcus Freeman and the freedom that you see him having on the sidelines now. And Shark has been Shark for a long time now. But that's the problem still is right now, it seems like everything's clicking for Ohio State. So that's really the problem. The problem why being someone from the Big Ten, I always tell people, Ohio State alums and fans, like, say it with your chest out. You guys have too much talent to be meek. Like you're supposed to be the LSU, Alabamas, the Georgias. Like, as far as like, if I was down in SEC country, the teams, definitely Georgia and Alabama. I don't know about LSU, Garrett, but definitely, just those
Come
teams.
on, man.
I'm just having some fun. But you still, but I mean, even still, LSU can stick their chest. Like there's times that they've won national championship, 2 national championships within the last decade, where you can stick your chest out. And sometimes it seems like Ohio State fans are like, yes. I mean, it's like, dude, you're the big school in the Big Ten. Act like it. You have the best talent usually year in and year out, but you don't take advantage of it. And that's part of the reason why I've been off the Ryan Day bandwagon, because I felt like he's had wonderful talent and hasn't used it. You just brought up the fact that usually with Tate, their third wide receiver is like, look, Jackson Smith and Jigba. Like, you'd be like, oh yeah, they got a nice guy, and he ends up being a stud. Like they're one of those schools, like I'll give props to LSU. They're in Alabama, they're a wide receiver U type school, Ohio State, but they don't play like that half the time. Like everything you said about Penn State, imagine, and again, Drew Aller has to have the poise, but imagine having the wide receiver trio that Ohio State has at Penn State. Like Ohio State usually has an embarrassment of riches when it comes to wide receiver, but there are times where, and you mentioned Michigan, you're in the fourth quarter, and instead of being like, you know what, I'm gonna go out and follow my sword, I'm just going out. Ryan Day gets scared with this play calling and allows another team that isn't playing conservative to take advantage of them and exploit them, and they end up losing the game. Again, though, if I'm picking for tonight, I'm picking Ohio State. Even though I'm playfully hating, I'm as a Big Ten person, I enjoy the school. I just want them to say it with pride and stop acting scared sometimes.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, everybody, like, dogs take on the attitude of their owners, right? Like if you're chill, your dog's gonna be chill. If you're high strung, it's the same thing with coaches and fan bases. The coaches are high strung, the fan base is gonna be high strung. The one thing I can tell you that I've noticed about Texas fans who are insufferable a large amount of the time, I will tell you, they have been a lot more chill with Sark because Sark is chill. Notre Dame, the same thing. Look, I'm Catholic. I grew up, you have two kinds of people when you grow up Catholic. You have people who are Notre Dame fans, and then people who hate Notre Dame because somebody told them that they had to be a Notre Dame fan, and they said, you can't tell me what to do. That's the two things. And even the Notre Dame fans in my life, they're like chill. They're like, oh, hey, like football's fun, right? And like, I remember when Jimbo Fisher was at FSU, like, there's nothing chill about Jimbo. I was very confident that year, but after 2013, my life as a fan of Jimbo's FSU was a nightmare because it was just like, like the Jameis year, great. The second Jameis year where they were just like drunk until the fourth quarter and we're like, did you guys know we're losing? We're losing. All right, hey, let's go win this thing. Like, that's how it was. It was just like somebody, like, they got it at halftime, and like somebody gave them some scrambled eggs, and they were like, oh, it's 21-7? What? All right, no, let's go score 3 touchdowns. You guys got it? Okay, good deal. I'm going to throw up, and I'll be back in, So that's kind of how it went. But, Kenneth, great to see you. We'll start rolling it back up. We'll get into some NFL stuff, too. I'm very curious. I'm gonna have you on when the Bears decide what they're gonna do at head coach, because I'm very curious about that. They're interviewing everybody.
Everyone.
Yeah. I'm waiting for my call. I'm just sitting here waiting for my call. I'm worried I might say yes too fast, but
take your time. Take your time. Get everything you need. Get everything you need.
That's right. Kenneth Davis, Big Ten Country. Check him out. Kenneth, always great to see you, buddy.
You too. See you guys.
This is 365 Sports.